So I'm Damon Wilson. I'm the president here at the Endowment. Welcome to NED. It's a real honor to have you with us. We're going to be focused today on pathways to freedom, how to support political prisoners along their journey from release to reintegration. But it's a special day because this is an event that's in partnership with the World Liberty Congress, focused on one of the most important issues out there. And it's a special day for many of the reasons you're here is because that we understand this work. It's not about handbooks. It's not about projects. It's not about budgets. It's about people. You know that. We know that. And they're very special people here today. They're people who are leading the cause right now against what feels like a very difficult moment to help us get off our back foot and to get on offense in favor of freedom. That is what you are doing. Every minor contribution you make adds up with a colleague sitting next to you to be consequential. And then there are people in this room whose job it is to support that fight and to support you. Many of the NED team members I'm really proud of. But I also want to give a shout out because there are two groups that are here. The World Liberty Congress itself is a representation of an understanding of not just people are amazing, but we need better strategy. And we've been watching the challenges because the challenges have gotten stronger. The autocrats have worked together. They've manifested in ways that have made our work really tough. Max, we were just talking about this. And so what have you done? You have come together as activists to join hands together in the World Liberty Congress to work in common cause, to say, okay, yeah, the bad guys are cooperating, but what happens when we can create magic when we come together? And that's what you're going to see with a lot of folks who are here with the World Liberty Congress and others who are their allies. It's a simple proposition and it's beautiful. But there are another group of folks here are those who support the freedom fighters. And I'm going to give a shout out to the Reynolds Foundation because it was the endowment with the Reynolds Foundation that took a first bet on the World Liberty Congress to say, they've got energy, they've got ideas, it's going to be a little messy. Yes, let's give us some lift, some oxygen, go out into this fight. And it takes people like the Reynolds Foundation, amazing partners to work in common cause with. We're privileged to have you here as partners in this effort. And it's part of our commitment at the endowment of working in common cause with many of you and your organizations. All right, so we're going to unpack today two remarkable handbooks that are designed by political prisoners, for political prisoners and their families. I'm going to let the teams talk about this, but it's an amazing group of people behind it. We're going to hear from Berta Valle, Lilian Tintori, Félix Maradiaga, Drexel, Anaïse Kanimba, Alex Chow, Evgenia Kara-Murza, Wang. And if you think about all the people you're going to hear from today, Berta, Lilian, Grace, Evgenia, these are family members who work tirelessly advocating for their imprisoned loved ones, whether in Nicaragua and Venezuela, China, Rwanda, Russia. They regained and took back the dignity that was taken away from them by finding voice in the fight, not just for their loved ones, but for so many others. And for Félix, Wang, Alex, Leopoldo, all former political prisoners, they had strength knowing that there was family that was taken care of, family that was doing more than that, taking agency in that fight. And it's really beautiful to see. I'm going to turn it over to Félix in a moment. Now, the president of the World Liberty Congress, whose wife, Berta, led the political action campaign, the Political Prisoners Action Campaign with Lilian at the World Liberty Congress to develop the materials we're going to see today. Lilian and Berta, thank you for taking the leadership on this. And thank you for turning your personal tragedy into something that would be empowering to so many families around the world. It is beautiful, and we thank you for that. It is a family affair. Many of you know in this room, you didn't set out to go be human rights defenders. It wasn't the choice you made. It was something thrust upon you by what happened to you and your family. And we really honor that. The problem is the regimes understand it as well. And so it's not just this group of people we have here. There are an estimated 1 million political prisoners around the world today. And you think about that. We've come to a period we were talking where it's really hard to pull off what Idi Amin or Pol Pot did in slaughtering millions of your citizens. But a much more targeted campaign to find those that are most effective in our societies and to target them stigmatize them, imprison them. And that's what this is about. So at the Endowment, I'm really proud on behalf of our board. We have our vice chair, Ken Wallach. We have Mark Plattner with us. I think our founding president, Carl, should be with us shortly. That this is an institution with many NED team members here who see you and understand you. And what that has translated in is we are proud to back now more than 50 organizations that are working on political prisoners around the world, putting at least an annual $10 million into this targeted work alone. So for me, I'm going to stop and turn it over to Félix, turn it over to the program. But for me, when I came to the Endowment, I needed to learn and understand what this really meant. And it's the people who are here with us today that really helped me understand the significance. It's listening to Berta Valle tell people that when her husband, Félix, was arrested, taken to prison, that she pulled out the list, call Ned, and she dialed and called someone at Ned she had never met. It was for me when I was here and received a letter from Vladimir that said, knowing that my family has a community of support is the most important thing to keep me going in my fight. We understand how significant this is. We are a freedom organization, a democracy organization, and that only works when brave, courageous people have the support and capacity to pull off what you do. It is an honor to stand by your side. So with that, Félix, let's get this show started. Come on up to Félix Maradiaga, the new president of the World Liberty Congress and a great friend, my brother.
Thank you, brother.
Over to you.
There is no greater tyranny than imprisoning the conscience. And many of you in this room know that. And as Leopoldo and I have heard through the words of our human rights lawyer, Jared Genser, the worst fear of a political prisoner is to be alone. We had the blessing of knowing that we have a lifeline. That's why when I receive a call from my students in Managua saying, Profesor, nos están matando. Professor, they're killing us. I decided to go and join the students, trying to evacuate them, not knowing if I was going to go back. But I gave Berta, as Damon was reminding us, a list of people, and at the top of that list was Aimel Rios, who's here. Aimel, somewhere there is. And Aimel got a phone call 5 in the morning. And Aimel, alongside his team, know that they have been doing this not only in Nicaragua, they've done it for political prisoners in Zimbabwe, in Uganda, they've done it for political prisoners in Cuba, in Venezuela. But there are many, many political prisoners, about 1 million political prisoners in 78 countries of the world that do not have those resources. They don't know how to do it. And when Berta started to learn the process, how do you hire a human rights lawyer? How do you navigate Washington to advocate for the freedom of the political prisoners? And she did that alongside the wife of another political prisoner, Victoria Cárdenas. Then someone mentioned, you should meet, and I think it was Jared, you should meet Lilian Tintori. And Lilian Tintori, alongside Berta, started to create a global movement. So today, we do not gather here to celebrate a book. Together, we do not gather here to celebrate 2 wonderful authors, and I should also add Gloria Wu, another of the lead authors who's not here, a wonderful student from UVA. We're here to honor a movement of love against fear, a movement of truth against impunity, a movement of families who refuse to surrender. So thank you, Berta. Thank you, Lilian. We also have the co-founder of the World Liberty Congress, Leopoldo López. And dear Leopoldo, my friend, my brother, you know that the bravest work in this room was not made by you. My dear friend, Vladimir Kara-Murza, you know that the bravest work was not done by you. It was done by Evgenia. It was done by Lilian, and it was done by Berta. And we need to recognize our families. And I'm sure that Leopoldo, when he was in solitary confinement in prison, if you combine his time in house arrest solitary confinement over 7 years, or Vladimir in an absurd, obscene, inhumane prison in Russia. We could not know what our families were doing. We know that they were exercising their extreme love. But when I joined Evgenia in London, for example, with the Magnitsky Justice Campaign, or when I witnessed Evgenia walking the halls of the European Parliament, I could imagine my own wife, Berta, doing that. And I could imagine the way that Lilian did it. So this book, what tries to do is to share the lessons of strategy, because compassionate strategy, autocrats are becoming more informed, they're becoming sophisticated, and we need to fight back. But because we know that when one person is jailed for their ideas, the prison has no walls. It extends to every free mind on earth. About 78 countries in the world are putting people into prison just because the way they pray, because the way they love, because the way they express their political ideas, because they just want freedom and democracy. So at the World Liberty Congress, the Political Prisoner Support Network, that is co-chaired by Lilian and Berta, is defining the modern test of our era. Political prisoners is not just one of our programs, it's the test of our era. And today, with these books, we are one step closer to passing that test. May God bless you. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much to the World Liberty Congress. This is not in protocol. We're gonna go out protocol, and we want to say thank you that Félix, Maradiaga, and Leopoldo López that are here. Please stand up, and thank you for the World Liberty Congress and for your passion and sacrifice. Because thank you both, we learned a lot, and we became freedom activists and human rights activists. Second, thank you, Ned, for giving us the opportunity to present these two tools. Two manuals created for the families of the political prisoners and for ex-political prisoners, the blue one and the green one. The most important and beautiful job I have ever had in my life is being a mother. I have 3 kids with Leopoldo. And I can say that the same love and devotion I feel as a mother is what I have given into the work I have been doing for the last 5 years, supporting the families of the political prisoners. And not only supporting the families, but walking with them until their loved ones are released from prison. And when they are finally free, a new process begins, the process of reintegration. And we are there as well, accompanying them, embracing them, holding them, guiding them, mental support, emotional support, mental health. It is also an honor to share this program and this work with my co-founder, Berta Valle from Nicaragua. And together, we have met extraordinary people around the world who are part of this shared force and commitment to the liberation of all political prisoners, wherever they may be. When this happened to us, there was no writing guide. We learned from lawyers. We came to this city many, many times and listened and learned, and especially to understand the legal dimension. And here in this room, out of protocol, I need to ask Jared Jansers to stand up. Jared, please, stand up. Jared was our lawyer when Leopoldo was in jail. Jared was the lawyer of Félix Maradiaga when Félix was in jail. Jared, thank you. Thank you for teaching us. You teach me speak English as well. Thank you so much for your support, for your lesson. You are for us a mentor. Thank you, Jared. So we try to understand legal system and rule of law with Jared and many lawyers and many people that are here in this room. Thank you so much. But it's difficult to understand because in our countries, there are no rule of law, or the law is using as a tool of persecution.
So I also want to thank everyone for standing here with families of political prisoners. These manuals are not the work of two people. They are a co-creation built together with other Courage family members and experts that have given their own life experience and heart into these pages. I also want to recognize the support, the vision of the co-writers, Genesis Davila, Marian da Silva, Gloria Wu, and other experts that have helped us to build these two tools. These books are born from a simple reality. As Lilian mentioned, when this happened to us, there was no guide. Arbitrary detention is not only a personal strategy, it is a deliberate strategy used by authoritarian regime to insulate, intimidate, and weaken entire movements. When my husband, Félix Maradiaga, was detained in Nicaragua, I understood that insulation was part of the design. And I also understood that solidarity must be more than emotional support. It must be organized. It must be informed. It must be strategic. That is why the first manual provides practical guidance for families that are advocating for the release of their loved ones, where particularly there is no rule of law. But also, as Lilian mentioned, release is not the end. And this is why we built the second manual, which is to cover that second part, the reintegration. Political prisoners often return to society that remains authoritarian. They face trauma, uncertainty, and immense expectations, sometimes without the space to heal. That is why today we hope that this tool can be used by families and former political prisoners to actually recover their dignity. And our goal is simple, that no family feels alone in this journey, and that no released political prisoner is left without support. It is sustained through community, strategy, and shared responsibility. So thank you very much for joining us in this mission.
We lead this program, but we are not the most important thing in this program. The most important thing and the most important people in our program, in the World Liberty Congress, PPST, Political Prisoner Support Team, are the families. That's why we are gonna talk today with Anaïse Kanimba, my sister of freedom. Anaïse from Rwanda, human rights advocate and daughter of Paul Rusesabagina. She has led the global campaign to challenge his arbitrary detention and mobilize international diplomatic pressure for his release. Applause to Anaïse, please. Our favorite today and tonight, Grace Jean, religious freedom advocate and daughter of Pastor Ezra Jean Mingri, imprisoned in China for his faith. She works to raise international awareness about his case and religious persecution. Grace, welcome. I'm with you. You are not alone. And Brian Tronic, director of the Fred Hiatt program to free political prisoners and Freedom House. He supports families and advocates worldwide in building effective campaigns for the release of unjustly detained individuals. Thank you, Brian. So I want to start share with you that this is a safe place. We can talk here as a personal way, and we want to do this conversation for support Grace, first of all, support your family and your country, and support all the political prisoners that feels right now alone in the pathway to freedom. So we're going to focus this conversation in the blue handbook, Pathway to Freedom. Why? Because Grace right now is in the path. So I'm going to start with you, Grace. Tell us about your path and tell us, how do you feel right now?
Thank you so much for having me here. Just wonderful to be amongst friends, and again, to, like you said, that to know that I'm not alone, and that there are successful stories that we can look to. I just quick brief in summary of my father's situation. On October of 2025, so around 4 months ago, my father, along with almost 30 leaders of his church, were detained by the Chinese authorities. And 18 of them are still currently being detained in Guangxi City, and Guangxi Province, Beihai City. And we don't know if they are going to be released anytime soon. And I've been advocating for their release since October. Just kind of a little brief intro to how I'm feeling generally, like also mentioned by someone, that this is not the path that I had picked for myself. I definitely did not want to do this. In fact, I remember one of my earliest memories that I had was that I did not want to be called my father's daughter. Like, I didn't want to be introduced as Pastor Jin's daughter everywhere. And now I feel like everywhere I go, I'm being introduced as Pastor Jin's daughter. And so that I just think that it's one of the funny moments of how things worked out. In fact, the plan that I had for myself was, like many of you here today, I wanted to actually help other people who were detained. I worked for an organization in Washington, D.C., the Congressional Executive Commission on China, in the past, to advocate for human rights in China. And in fact, I know that there are so many cases in China that are detained. I've met so many families in the past, like just a few names, like Pastor Gao Zhisheng, Ding Jiaxi, Chen Yuan, Xu Zhiyong, like the Uyghurs, Goshan Abbas, Ilham Tohti, the Uyghurs, the Tibetans, the Hong Kongers, Jimmy Lai's family. And there's so many families. I felt like when it first happened, like, why do we need another family? Why do we need another tragedy? And why do I need to give up my life in order to just be another name? And like, what are we supposed to do? But I also think it's just been extremely helpful being in this stage to see so many people come together and to give their support so wholeheartedly. Like, I was almost bombarded with support at the beginning, and I'm so sorry if I forgot to respond to any emails. I will get to it. But just incredible amount of support and help. And I'm just thankful for this toolkit as well. I will definitely be reading it over and taking notes on the side and figuring out how it is that I already have one, but I'll take another one. Especially again, just to see that there are successful stories, and this is a path that has worked. And ultimately, I'm just so thankful to see how you've turned your pain into solidarity and turned your pain into strength. And those really does give those of us who are still in that situation a lot of hope. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Grace. You know that in the Blue Handbook, in Pathway to Freedom, the most important thing is that with the family, with the spouse, if the prisoner have a spouse or daughter, that is your case, need to connect to who is the prisoner. So can you tell us 3 things about your dad?
Yeah.
Because in that moment, we all connect with the prisoner and we all connect as a community and we can help to support Grace in the campaign.
Thank you so much. So my dad, or Pastor Ezra Jin, or Jin Mingri, he is a Chinese citizen, and he is a pastor. He became a pastor after the Tiananmen student protest. He was actually not one of the key leaders, he participated a few times, but that as a generation was a big destroyed his idea of his worldview when the government brutally shut down the protest. And because of that, he turned to Christianity and became a Christian. My father, through being a Christian, really felt joy and hope and love for the people of China, for the society of China, and he wanted to give back to the country and to minister to the country. So many times he had the opportunity to come to the US and live in the US with his family, but he chose to go back to China and be a pastor in China, knowing the risks. So he wasn't naive. The other thing about my father is that he is an extremely loving and not a very stereotypical Asian dad. He would very much when he sees me, he'll just be like, "Oh, my beautiful daughter," and make a big scene. And we would always link arms with each other while we're walking around. Oftentimes we'll watch TV shows together. We'll all be weeping together. He was just a very loving father, a very loving husband, a very loving church pastor. And we all miss him. I have 2 younger brothers as well, and my mother are all in the US, and we hope that he can rejoin us soon.
How's your family? How is the path for them?
There's definitely a lot of ups and downs. Like there are some days where we don't want to do anything and just kind of lay flat and just kind of rot in some ways. And just thinking about how he is doing in the detention center really makes us makes it difficult to enjoy life in some ways. But I also think again, just having each other, having the church as our community has also helped a lot. And so we try our best to kind of rely on each other more in this time.
Good. It's a path to freedom, but it's not, you are not alone. It's with the family. That's why we wrote, co-author, this handbook is for the family all together. It's not isolated like that. Only the voice of the prisoners. No, it's a community that you need to build with your own family. And it's difficult. It's not easy, but you can do it. We can do it. Let's talk with Brian. Brian, thank you for being here. Have you been in this situation, or you only decide to support political prisoners because you are amazing and you have a lot of solidarity?
It's great to be here, and it's a pleasure to share the stage with you all. I have never been in prison myself, and I'm very grateful for that. And I have not had family members also be imprisoned, but I think, your loved ones and the loved ones of many here are just the change makers that are ushering in, I hope, a better world. And I want to do my part to support them from afar. These are the people changing countries, whole countries, through their leadership and their advocacy, and they're in prison for that. And in my small way, I want to support them from afar and try to get them out so they can continue their work.
That's amazing. Brian said that there are amazing people because there come activists. Not only The political prisoners are already freedom fighters and activists. The families come as activists to the future. So thank you, Brian, for your support. And I want to ask you, what are the most effective mechanisms families can use to advocate for their loved ones, particularly in the case like Grace?
Yeah, a lot of these cases are very difficult. And it really depends on the specific case. But I think in any political prisoner case, you have to use all the tools available. And actually, I've looked at the book, and I think it's absolutely, the manual, it's terrific in that it highlights the need to press forward the case domestically. So in China, you need a good criminal defense lawyer to take up the case, even though we know the courts are often controlled, right? Even with a predetermined outcome, you have to fight the case domestically. At the same time, as the manual says, you want to take up the international advocacy. You want to bring in the international community to both name and shame, of course, but also, you want to impose tangible consequences. And there are many ways to talk about what that can be. One sort of famous example are those targeted human rights-based sanctions on foreign officials doing the detaining, doing the prosecuting and the imprisoning. And then all of these cases have a media and public relations angle, right? We have to educate the public. We have to educate the world about the injustice of what is happening. So I don't think there's one strategy. It's sort of do it all and tailor it to the country context. Of course, to talk about China, we all know that Trump and Xi are meeting, right? We have a summit coming up. And so civil society, Freedom House, and many organizations are very much planning behind the scenes how we can exert pressure ahead of that and see what might be possible, as we've seen in Russia and other countries. So, and of course, her father is right up there on the sort of priority list.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Brian. So let's talk with Anaïse. I remember when I met Anaïse, Leopoldo said, Lilian, you need to talk with Anaïse and Kanimba from Rwanda. And I say, why? Because their father is in jail. And I say, I need a space. I need to rest. I was like, I was in my reintegration as well, because the families suffer a lot for many, many years. So we have trauma. We need a space to stop, and we need a space to heal. So I breathe up super deeply, and I go down to the lobby in Oslo, and I say, okay, Leo, let's do it. So Leo introduced me these amazing two girls, sisters, that was in that moment like, my dad is in jail. And I say, and what's your name of your dad? Paul. And the picture of your dad, I don't have. You don't have? Let's find a picture. We find a picture in the cell phone, and we print the picture, and we start with the campaign, and we continue the campaign because you start alone. But I want to share this because this book, the blue handbook, we are like starting doing with you, Anaïse. So how do you feel in this moment? Your dad is released, and strategy, communication, legal inside, legal outside, family issues. What do you want to share in your experience? And this is not like, this is amazing. That all the words that you can say and share with us, it's going to help a lot Grace today.
Well, I don't know, my voice is going to shake. My heart is beating so fast because what you said is so meaningful. I remember that day in Oslo when you and Leo came down, and we actually had just finished to do a t-shirt campaign, we should think about that too. And when Lily asked me, do you have a photo of my dad? We weren't wearing our t-shirts. And then Lilian told me, Anaïse, now you have a t-shirt, everywhere you go, wear that t-shirt. So on the back of our room, brought the t-shirt down after, and Leo put the t-shirt on and did a video. And from then on, it was in May 2022. We had our t-shirt maybe a month before then. From that month until Dad came back, I wore the t-shirt every day. So that was one of the very first things he gave us, meant so much to us. We all said, you never think that you're ever going to be in the situation. And many, like you say, you've known this in your family. I was working in international development, doing global health, that was my human rights. I left the politics and democracy at the dinner table, but then it does follow you until when Dad was taken away and was brought to Rwanda. And something that I had learned in this dinner table, even though I didn't want to accept into my day-to-day life, that Dad had told us is if there's ever a problem, you need to be the voice of that political prisoner, because my dad was also helping other political prisoners in Rwanda when he was free. So that was the first thing that I remember. We knew right away we had to become his voice. And we just shouted everywhere. We called people, we emailed folks, and many of people that we reached out are in these rooms. We reached out to folks who reached out to people in this room who also connected us and helped us. And the lesson from that I can share is, and also that I had learned from my dad, is that you never say no to yourself, specifically when in a situation like this. Don't be scared to ask for help. Let the other person tell you no. It's very difficult to say no to a person who's in need. It's, you know, it's psychological, but it's that don't hesitate to ask. And then our family was the biggest support that we had. When we thought we were alone, we just had our family, but quickly we realized that we were not alone, actually. You know, the legal community, the media, the government, in the US government, the European government, and others. And things got really quick and we were no longer alone. But then how do we do this together? That was our question. And often there's distrust. You know, you hear that there's going to be an announcement and you don't hear it. Or you hear that the court is going to say something and they change it. And all these things that happened, you have to realize that we are all a team, and everybody's trying to work together to bring your loved one home. And my hope is for people who are in our situation, in your situation, is to find a place where you can have all these people in sync and working together, and you trust each other, you become colleagues, and you all work together, you're on the same team, all to save the life of your dad. And sometimes it takes a long time because you don't know these people. It's scary, you're learning, you don't know who to trust, who not to trust. But people who are here for you, they want the best for you. So they're on your team, work with them in that sense. And lastly, celebrate every single milestone. You know, you guys did 7 years. We were there for 2.5 years. But whether it was a tweet from a senator or an article from the New York Times or, you know, a resolution, we were celebrating it the exact same way, because every single little milestone allowed us to go further. It encouraged us, it gave us hope, it reminded us again that we were seen and people remember, and we were doing our job to be the voice of our dad. So celebration is really, really important to allow you to continue the struggle. And lastly, again, there's more good than evil in here. And this is something when you are lying in your bed wondering, what are we gonna do? Why is this world so bad? Remember, actually, you know what? There are more good than bad of us. And all together, we can make it happen. And many people, again, in this room helped us bring our dad home. And so, you know, these are bad guys with a lot of power, with a lot of access and resources, but don't let that scare you, because at the end of the day, there's more good than bad in the world, and there's humanity. And you see that when people are coming to you, when you never heard of them, and use that as the light to guide you as you continue to fight for your dad. And I can tell you many more things, but I'll stop here. Yeah.
So yes, Grace, you are light in the dark cell. You are the voice of many, not only your dad. And Anaïse, if you remember that path, what's the most important thing that you think you have it in that moment to resist, to continue, to don't stop?
I had faith he was gonna come back. And we knew that we were fighting for our country, for the truth, and for love. And when you're fighting for love, faith comes with it and it never stops. So I knew that it could take a year. Actually, the first time that I found out that I was in Rwanda, I thought it was a 5-day problem. Like, they'll figure out it's a mistake. A year in, 2 years in, it could take a long time. But I knew that he was gonna come back one day, and that will just keep you going. And love and faith will keep you going.
Yeah.
It's the strongest thing. And this government, they can do everything that they want. But at the end of the day, they cannot take away the love that you have for your father. They cannot take away the faith that you have that anything can be possible. And that is the biggest thing that they actually gets them angry, because they'll try everything to push you down, but you have that faith and you have that love. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
And the last question. Sorry, Anaïse, it's for you. Do you miss something?
Something about those days?
Yes, something about the past? Path?
The
Do you miss something?
You know what? I do miss when I say never say no to yourself. I do miss that aspect of it, you know, because you have a mission and you go, and you don't doubt yourself. I didn't doubt because I knew I was fighting a good cause and I was fighting for the love, I was fighting for my father. But now that I'm on my own today, I'm really happy to be part of the World Liberty Congress, to be in a community, to continue to do my work in Freedom Tech, but now I doubt myself sometimes. And I wish that I didn't have that anymore, because there was something that took over me where I felt like Superman, and I want to feel like Superman all the time. Supergirl, and that aspect, it's that fear. When I was fearless, sometimes I miss that aspect of me when I was in those days. Yeah.
So that's amazing, no? The purpose, the drive, the agency to do things. Brian, do you feel that purpose?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as I sit here today, I'm here in this room with all of you, but my mind is very much in Cameroon with C. Conrad, a journalist who's now over 9 years. He sits in his cell, and every day I think of him. I think of Idris Khatak in Pakistan, whose case I'm actively working on, and many others, Morocco, Cambodia, and many other countries, Cuba. And so, I think of them and I think of what they're going through, and have no choice but to, keep fighting and to try new things and try harder and simply not rest until they are free, because we need them.
Amazing. Grace, do you have the purpose clear and the mission? Can you share with us?
Yes, to have my father released and for him to join our family in the US. And we need a successful story in China. It's been too long. Yeah. So I really hope and pray that I will be able to see my father soon.
On this with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Anaïse. Now we're going to pass to the new handbook, the green one, with Berta Valle.
After his imprisonment for his role in the Umbrella Movement in 2014, he continued academic and advocacy work while navigating the ongoing risk facing by Hong Kong activism. So thank you for coming, Alex. Also, I want to welcome Vladimir Kara-Murza, Russian opposition leader, journalist, and former political prisoner sentenced to 25 years of opposing the war in Ukraine. Following his release, he continues to advocate internationally for democracy and accountability. Thank you for being here. Also, my dear friend, Evgenia Kara-Murza, a Russian human rights advocate who led international efforts during her husband's imprisonment and has spoken globally about the impact of political repression on families and reintegration after release. Thank you for being here. And also thank you for coming, Wei Nu. She's a Burmese human rights activist and former political prisoner who has spent 7 years in prison in Myanmar. After her release, she founded the Women's Peace Network and became a leading advocate for democracy and minority rights. Thank you. Please join me with a round of applause. So while we were writing and building the handbook, we started asking ourselves, what are those things that we have to consider when we speak about reintegration? And one of the experience that we have is particularly being a wife of a political leader, a human rights activist, right? Is this space, and Lilian mentioned it, that you feel so overwhelmed and exhausted that after receiving the news of the release of your loved one, you wanted to have a space, right? To rest, to get together after probably many years of not being together. And I want to start this question with Evgenia. Evgenia participated in the writing. She collaborates with her experience and comments on the handbook. So Evgenia, let's start from there. There are released, we received this amazing news. What can you share with the audience and everyone of, expectations versus reality? And what is that moment, what that means for families of political prisoners?
Thank you very much, Berta. And I want to start by thanking Ned for doing this. And I want to say that over the past years, NAD has become not just an organization, an ally organization, but such a valuable, truly close community, a family, really. NAD has become family. This is a place where I know I can always come to. This is a safe place, safe space. And this is amazing what you're doing. And thank you so much, Damon. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I want to say to Grace that your pain, I can feel it deeply. I've been there. I know what it is to be afraid for your loved one's life every single day. And I remember how I would start every day thinking of that saying by Winston Churchill: if you're going through hell, keep going. Do not stop. You will see the light at the end of the tunnel. You will see it, but in order to see it, you need to move forward, and you need to use every single opportunity to speak out, to shout out, to yell. And you have to find all the possible allies along the way. And there will be a lot of those because, as Anaïse said, there is more kindness and more good in the world, really. And that saying that Anaïse said about love, also so very true, because this is what's going to push you along the way. This is what's going to help you get up from bed every day. That's what's going to get you to the end of the day and going to sleep. Tell yourself that I did something today. I yelled. I found another ally. I saw a resolution passed, an article written about my father. I achieved something, and I'm one little step closer to that light at the end of the tunnel. I see a question, Berta. It is true that while our loved ones are behind bars, this is an experience that you would never, ever wish on anyone, because this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare because you always have to think about, what should I do? Should I be silent or should I speak out? Will it create more risks for my loved one behind bars? Or is it safer to be quieter and maybe those risks will not gonna come? Well, I am a good student of my husband. I've seen him do this for years and years and years, advocating for other political prisoners. So for me, screaming at the top of your lungs is the best strategy, because the worst things always happen behind closed doors and in the darkness. You need to throw open the doors. You need to shine the light on what is happening. You need to tell the world about it. And it is always, always a personal story, and it always begins in the family. And when that nightmare ends, yes, there is this sense of complete and utter exhaustion. It's overwhelming. It's completely debilitating. And going through those few first months, there is this expectation of the world when a political prisoner is released, then he or she should be back at work right away. That this is a person who's been released, so there should be this exhilaration about it, and there is, of course. But at the same time, I don't think that the world realizes that this is a broken person.
Yes.
And that broken person comes back to a very much broken family. A family that went through the unthinkable, the family that went through all the trauma, all the tragedy, of being deprived of contact, of being, I was just, the fear that I saw in my kids' eyes. Will daddy come home, or will the Russian regime finally achieve its goal? Because they saw him twice in a coma, twice in 2 years. He survived 2 assassination attempts, and they know what it is when daddy is in Russia. They know what it can lead to. So that fear that I saw in their eyes, but at the same, that courage that they exhibited, telling me, Mom, we know what you're doing. Go and do your thing. Go and do your thing. Continue, bring daddy home. So I think that sustained me a lot on this journey. But yes, that healing has to be done. And there needs to be space and time for that healing, because those broken parts of a family need to find, love is never lost.
Yes.
Love is there, no question about it. But there is a lot of broken pieces that need to be put together again into one whole. And that needs to happen in quiet.
Yes.
Behind closed doors.
That happens. And also, for that to happen, we need support. And that is why we need to support former political prisoners and their families in order to rebuild their lives. And we have been lucky. We are so blessed, I can tell you, and Lilia can say the same, that we have had friends everywhere helping us, supporting us, believing in our cause. But that it's something that we have to make it more known and people to be aware of that need. So in contrast with that, we have Vladimir. I remember we were so joyful, Vladimir, when we saw you, and we knew that you were released. And me as a wife, right? Like my expectation was that Evgenia can have what I wish I would have, which my husband back home just stay, calm and take care of the family and in a very more close way, right? But we know that you activists and particularly pro-democracy activists have this passion and power. So you just went out and started advocating and working from where you stopped. So for you, what it meant, that process, or what had meant this process of reintegration, understanding that going back to your work, but also, going back home.
Well, first of all, thank you so much to the National Endowment for Democracy for hosting this amazing and very important event. And because the previous panel featured the loved ones of the political prisoners, I just want to look at it from the other side and say that I know for a fact that I would not have been able to do what I've been doing for these past 26 years, and especially for these past 11 years, without the love and the support of my family. I felt that every single minute of every single day I spent in that Siberian gulag, and that was one of the most important things that helped me survive. Many, many years ago, I was making a documentary film for which I was filming an interview with Irvin Kotler, somebody known very well to a lot of people in this room, former Justice Minister of Canada, a lifelong and passionate advocate for human rights, who has worked as a lawyer representing prisoners of conscience the world over, from Nelson Mandela to Natan Sharansky and many, many, many others. And I remember that interview we were filming with him. This was, I don't remember what years, 7 or 8 years ago. And he said to me that, in my long experience, Irvin said, the success stories of the political prisoners were those who had strong, passionate, committed, and dedicated wives who were fighting for them while they were in prison. And he mentioned Natan Sharansky, he mentioned Yuri Edelstein, he mentioned Andrei Sakharov, of course, and many, many, many others. And after all these years, I am just one more proof of how true that maxim is, as is Leopoldo, as is Félix. And I think this is a very important thing to remember. In my country, certainly under the Soviet regime, going back decades, it has always been a deliberate strategy of the authorities to make sure that when they seek to punish the political opponent, they punish the family too. That has been like this for a long, long time. Back in the 1930s under Stalin, it was actually codified into law, if I may use that term, in relation to the Soviet totalitarian regime. In 1937, Nikolai Yezhov, the head of the NKVD, signed a special directive, which was called the Directive on the Wives of the Enemies of the People. And so any woman who was married to a quote-unquote enemy of the people was automatically sent to prison for a term of 5 years without having done anything herself, just because she was the wife. So that was the extreme example when it was official state policy, but even when it's not official state policy, it's very much state policy in practice. And so, when I was in prison in Omsk in Western Siberia, everybody else in that prison, the rapists, the murderers, the drug traffickers, and all the people who were there, because I didn't see any of them because I was in solitary confinement, but I knew that all of them had the right of a weekly call to their family, for example, by phone. This wasn't even under discussion. This was a right everybody had. I did not have that, of course. Neither did Alexei Navalny. Neither did people who are so many people in Russia who are in prison because, for example, of their opposition to the war in Ukraine, because it's the family that has to suffer too. In all the time that I was in Siberia, I was given that there was a lot of public outcry. My lawyers helped sort of stir up, and I was allowed one phone call, one 15-minute phone call. We have 3 children, so Evgenia had to literally stand there with a stopwatch on the other side, and once the 5 minutes were gone, physically take the phone away from one child and give it to another. They make it a deliberate torture for the families too, not just for the prisoner. And in fact, I have always thought, and I think it now, and I want to say it here out loud, that I've always thought that it is more difficult for the family of the political prisoner than for the political prisoner himself or herself. Because, I'd never committed a crime in my life. I'd never broken any law. But in the perverse Orwellian system that exists in today's Russia, I knew why I was in prison. I was fighting this regime for more than 20 years. My family was only made to suffer because they share my last name. And so it's much harder for the family than it was for us. And so my biggest worry, talking about this moment of release and reunification, my biggest worry was because I could not even talk to my kids, and they're teenagers, they're growing up, that, well, first of all, I'll be honest, I did not believe I'd come out of that prison alive. Right? That exchange was a miracle. That's the only way I can put it. So I cannot say that I thought about this, but sort of subconsciously, I was worrying about if I ever did see them again, how would we reconnect? How would we establish that contact? And I have to say that the moment we met in August 2024 in Frankfurt, Germany, so the exchange took place in Ankara, and the 3 American prisoners were flown to the US, and the Russians and the Germans, we were flown to Germany. So Evgenia and the kids flew to Germany to pick me up. And when we saw each other, it was like we didn't see each other for 2 days as opposed to 2.5 years. It was just immediate. It was just a click. And I think it's testimony to what everybody has been saying here today, that love is always there. It never goes away. It never goes anywhere. But in terms of, Berta, on your question of sort of adjusting to reality and that rehabilitation and renormalization, I'm probably a bad person to give any advice on this because I did not take that space that Jenny was talking about. I was released in August. That same month, I was already meeting with presidents and prime ministers and speaking at conferences because I felt that I had no right to disappear while I had the ear of those people.
Wow.
Because, the president of France calls me and asks to meet. I'm not going to say, what, wait for 2 months. That's not going to happen. And also, even though I had engaged in a lot of advocacy on behalf of Russian political prisoners for many, many years before my own arrest, it's so different now that it's personal. Mm-hmm. Because now I know what it's like to be woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning with a national anthem after you attach your bunk to the wall and then just spend the whole day meaninglessly walking in a small circle. When you sit in solitary confinement, you have nothing to do. You have nowhere to go. You have nobody to speak to. And that makes it extra hard, of course, to renormalize afterwards. But I know that so many of my personal friends and colleagues, so many of my fellow Russian citizens are still in that position, are still living that endless Groundhog Day every day now. And the latest figures are, this is only what we know from human rights groups according to publicly available information. It is not complete by any means. But even according to public figures, there are more political prisoners in Russia today than there were in the whole of the Soviet Union, that is 15 countries put together in the mid-1980s towards the end. And every single day, this is a figure from Memorial, the human rights organization, every single day, on average, 5 people in Russia are targeted with various forms of political repression. As we sit here today, 5 more people will be arrested. And I felt that I had no right to that time and that space because we need to get the others out as well, just the
Yes.
same way that all of you got us out of that hell.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that is important because, again, there's a expectation for former political prisoners to play a role if you're an activist. And that should remind us, right, that these people had suffered in so many ways that there needs support and needs to be here. And Wei, in your case, you were in prison for 7 years. And I want you to briefly share your story. When I learned about your story, I was really impressed, particularly because you were very young. And the reason you were persecuted was because of your father activism. And I believe that when you were released, nothing like this was available, right? So tell me what it means to you. Learn what do you learned in your own way after your liberation? What happened?
Thank you, Berta, for inviting me in this event, and thank you, Ned, Success, Damon, for hosting this important event. These kind of discussions means a lot to me personally as a former political prisoner, and thank you, Ned, for championing support for the former political prisoners. And I must say that I am a beneficiary, so thank you. So to answer your questions, Berta, when I was arrested when I was 18 years old, along with my mom, my sister, my brother. My father was taken away 2 months before us. And they put us in jail and they sentenced us to 17 years. And for my father, 47 years. And the worst part was that they have taken away my father from us. They sent us to a far prison. So as a teenager, it was very difficult to comprehend what was happening to me and to my father. And not being able to see and know his whereabouts was the most terrifying thing at that time. There was so much uncertainty, unknown, and we don't know when we were going to be released. On top of that, I felt like my future was taken away. My life was torn apart. I was a student, university student, right? I wasn't able to finish my school, so it was extremely hard as a teenager. I was not politically involved actively, apart from taking some courses, political courses in the American Center at the U.S. Embassy, along with my father. For some reason, I was put into there as a teenager, but despite that, I was not politically involved, but I was just a student, right? And it was extremely difficult, but then I need to find ways to heal myself, even in the prison, because otherwise I knew I wouldn't be able to survive. And I need to be able to comprehend what was happening and heal myself. So I basically borrowing Grace word, I turned my pain to strength. Inside the prison, I learned prison manual. I learned laws that I didn't finish in Burma, outside in the university, in the prison. And I told to myself that I was going to take revenge and bring justice for myself, for my family, and for others who are unjustly imprisoned in our prisons and across the country. So that was my kind of commitment to myself when I was in the prison. But when I was released, I was put in this like chaotic new environment after 7 years. Everything has changed. I have no friends, and I could not contact with my friends and my universities and all of this, right? But then I had to also acknowledge that I had the community that support us at that time. And it was thanks to NLD and AAPP who provided some space for us to be able to create space or connect with each other, get medical support. And there was some trauma healing assistance program as well, but I don't think we went through that. You know, in a country like Myanmar, the trauma and healings and these what we call it in the US, like going to the therapy is extremely new. We didn't know, and I never healed. I was young, 24 years old. I was healthy, so I didn't need that. And the only thing I needed was access to educations and access to resources. So basically, I had that. So I was physically and mentally able to heal. But most importantly, I think what was key to our healing was that to be able to reunite with my family. So after 7 years, five of us, all of us were released, and I was able to see my father. So that was the most important part, right? So if it wasn't there, I think my life would have been different. But then I think when it's come to my transformation itself, I would say that they made an activist in the prison, because otherwise, if I were not in prison along with my father, I had my own visions for my future, right? I always wanted to be a judge, because I've seen growing up, I have seen a lot of injustice in my community. I thought becoming a judge will help people, bring about justice. I never thought of activism or democracy or anything like that, even though my father was a political activist and the leader of the Rohingya minority community. But I never thought of going that part. Instead, I wanted to do something different. But then when I came out of jail, I felt a sense of duty. And I went back to law school, but I didn't become a judge, but instead I became a human rights activist, advocate. I founded Women's Peace Network. When atrocities against the Rohingya began, I felt a duty to respond. So I organized among the Rohingya women, as well as other former political prisoners, creating not only space, but also strategy to transform, to respond to the situations. And later on with the Women's Peace Network, we were able to lean onto these political prisoners to continue our work, because you have built a trusted network, right? So I think that's how it happened. But lastly, I would say though, healing and transformations for former political prisoners is very individual. And bottom line is that I think depending on the context and countries, not everybody is well off, and not everybody is educated, not everybody have access to employment. And then on top of that, my experience in compare with in a conservative society, a mother of two who would have been stigmatized or marginalized by the society itself because she was in prison, it's hard. So I think it's very individual. I think it's really important to understand this complexity behind an individual need and response to the individual needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And now, Alex.
And lastly, I just want to say that as I speak today, in Burma, we have at least 13,000 political prisoners remain inside the prison. And there was about 28,000 people who were charged, 23,000 have been detained, and yesterday they released about 12,000. So you can see the scales and intensity of the brutality of the military itself, but not just that, but also the collective trauma that our society and community carry in Burma. So I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that, Wei. This also, it's a great opportunity to invite you all to be part of people that accompany families of political prisoners and former political prisoners. So I invite you to read the handbooks, understand, what can be done. And if you met someone and you can get involved, please do so. And just to go and finish and maybe help us wrap up, Alex, I mentioned that a lot of political prisoners are forced into exile. And then there is this part of how do you rebuild your life abroad? And I think your case has been very successful. And I would like you to share with us what will be your recommendation from your own experience on doing this?
I'll just pick up on what Wei Wei has mentioned in her last line. Is that working? Is this working?
Yeah.
Oh, it's working. Okay, because I can't hear myself. Yeah. I think my situation is different. Like, well, when I came out from prison in 2017 and 2018, for like a Hong Kong at the time still had like certain civic space. But since then, like, well, civic space has shrunk. So like, well, what kind of opportunities like, well, political prisoners coming out from prison have really depends on like, well, how robust the civil society of our home countries are. What kind of network would they have? Both like, well, reuniting with family, reuniting with kids, whether there would be like job opportunities. Even when they get job interviews or get hired, whether the regime would be able to like, well, phone call the employer and tell them like just to cancel the appointment. And that has been happening like, well, in the past few years in Hong Kong after the national security law was introduced to Hong Kong. So the situation has been different. So for political prisoners, like, well, being released from prisons, like, well, they have to deal with their family issues, they have to deal with their children's issues. They may have to think about like whether they continue their political activism back home or overseas. And if they decide to remain home, whether there's any opportunities. And for now, we could say like, well, there's like, well, almost close to none political space, like, well, visibly, like, well, possible for Hong Kongers. And you at most only work underground. And that's a different ballgame. Like, how do you work underground as activists to rebuild all the infrastructure? And if you are not remaining underground, then you have to go overseas. And the first question is like, well, oh, what passport do you have? Do you have a US passport? Do you have a British passport? And you can see like, well, in the past few years, like, well, thousands of people have been like, well, moving to the UK because like the UK government has extended certain of sort of like humanitarian pathway to Hong Kongers. And because of domestic politics in the UK, they were also like discussing and debating in the parliament and also in the administration saying that, oh, whether we should like amend all those rules, allowing whether like those newcomers to gain citizenship. And that also impact like political prisoners because then they will have to rethink what kind of location do we have? If UK is not the site, would Canada be the next option? If Canada is not the option, then would US open its door? But in the US, we have a couple of like, well, a dozen of like, well, political prisoners, former political prisoners, or politically active people in the US. And they have been still waiting for their asylum cases. And as long as they are asylums, they could like not have the same legal standing as citizens to work for the government. And one journalist I met in the UK told me like, well, because of the like necessary requirement for security clearance, they actually could not apply their knowledge analyzing PRC's atrocity and also PRC military intelligence by working for their host countries just because like, well, you have rules that certainly like, well, they are legitimate rules, but that also concerns about like, well, political prisoners who are mentally stable, politically motivated, very like far-sighted, wanting to contribute to their host countries. What kind of like, well, legal infrastructure do we have for those political prisoners to like, well, continue rebuild their lives? Because like if they could not identify job opportunities, places to relocate themselves, and also places to contribute politically, then like, well, the next question is, then how could they survive financially? Do they find jobs in the commercial firms? Do they drive Ubers like, well, in today's economy? Those are all big and important questions that really impact like individuals and families who are now in prison and also would be releasing like, well, from prison like, well, down the road. So I think like, well, Hong Kong might be like, well, another window in like, well, looking at and unpacking what might be some of the logistical, financial, political, and institutional barriers both back home and also in the host countries. And I feel like there's a lot of conversation that we could like further unpack to like, well, help transform like, well, the political community back home in exile, in prison, to become a political source, a political strength for the host countries against authoritarian regimes. I think that would be, I think, like, well, one of the through lines for me as the case from Hong Kong.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I think you left the conversation in a good place. And I hope we can continue on searching and understanding and finding a way to respond those questions. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this amazing conversation. And Yes, please. If you know a family member of a political prisoner that is struggling right now and needs to understand what is the pathway to freedom, remember that we are here to support and former political prisoners. There is a lot to rebuild, and we believe that it's possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we thank you very much. We're gonna close this program with the person for the reason why we're here.
I think
I'm gonna invite y'all to take your seats. I'm gonna invite you to take your seats. That was amazing. We're gonna close out.
sorry. Yeah.
I know. No. I never say shoo.
Yeah.
We're here today because of the vision of one man. We're here today because of the vision of someone who was a political prisoner, who was an elected official and a mayor, a damn good one, who went into prison, came out of prison under house arrest, back into prison. And when escaped from Venezuela, knew he had to do and contribute more. He's part of the reason why the World Liberty Congress exists. It's part of the reason why we're all working together. Leopoldo López, close us out, man. And an amazing friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. No, so thank you very much. Thank you to Ned. Thank you to the World Liberty Congress, to the Reynolds Foundation, and to all of you for being here. It's a great honor. It's a dream come true in a way. As Damon said several years ago, I came here with an idea, and now it's a reality. Now we are a group of women and men who are working together towards a similar dream to be free in our countries. So I am very excited that today Lilian and Berta and the political prisoner support team were able to present these two handbooks. I can tell you that I am a witness of their work. I am a witness of the immense amount of time that they dedicate to this. It's dedicated work that takes them every single day to speak with a family of a political prisoner from somewhere in the world, sometimes with language challenges to understand and to be understood, but always with the commitment to have a personal approach to a problem that is human, that is not a technical problem. And that's why they came together, as it was very well said, because I think Vladimir said it very well, that the families suffer a lot more than what the prisoners do, especially if you're a prisoner of conscience, which is what it means to be a political prisoner. In a way, you are prepared to be under that circumstance. In a way, that prison becomes the oven that will bake the best cookie of your mind, of the ideas that you have been thinking about. You spend hours in that prison thinking about the reason why you're in prison and shaping those ideas, shaping the commitment. But for the family, for the kids, for the wives, for the mothers, for the fathers, it is agony. It is despair. It is uncertainty. And there is no one that can tell the family of a political prisoner what to do better than another family of a political prisoner. There are plenty of programs, and we appreciate all of them. There are many programs. The National Endowment for Democracy has programs for political prisoners. Freedom House has programs for political prisoners. Many other organizations do. But what we knew was missing, and Lilian and Berta and Evgenia and Anaïse, what they knew was missing was a program that spoke directly to the lifeline of that political prisoner, which is the family. And that's how they came up with a theoretical book that could have a lot of theory behind each one of the handbooks. There is a lot of theory, but it's not a theoretical book. It's not a book to create policy, although it can be the foundation for some policy initiatives. It is a handbook. It's a handbook that is practical. It is a handbook that starts with a phrase saying, you never wanted to read this handbook, but now you have to. Now you have to, because you have a family and a relative who is in prison. And this handbook just takes families through reality. As it was said, do I speak out or do I remain silent? Do I find counsel or do I get the counsel from the regime? Do I keep my case inside my country or do I look for support outside the country? All those questions are questions that are the same in Hong Kong, in China, in Nicaragua, in Rwanda, in Zimbabwe, in Cambodia, in Venezuela, same questions. And that's the foundation of what we wanted to create with the World Liberty Congress, because we knew from our own experience that what we were going through was similar, but also that our dream to be free is similar. We are very different as human beings. We have different skin colors, different languages, different religions, different history. But when it comes to talk about these issues, we're the same. We're the same. We're part of the same movement. It takes us 2 minutes to create absolute empathy when we talk about what it means to fight for freedom, what it means to be a political prisoner, what it means to be an activist at the front lines, what it means to lead or to be part of a movement that is being called a terrorist organization, what it means to be the target of character assassination through fake news and through bots and through manipulation, what it means to be debanked, to be financially apartheid. All of those issues are the same. It doesn't matter where you go through the challenge, they are the same. And that's the essence of why we created the World Liberty Congress. And part of what we want to create, and it's also being presented here, and I greatly appreciate the National Endowment for Democracy team, the leadership of Damon Wilson that has been very clear on this. This is not about a single organization. This is not about the National Endowment for Democracy. It's not about the World Liberty Congress. It's not about the Reynolds Foundation. It's not about any single organization. It's about all of us. It's about all of us. So one of the things I want to underline is the power of networks, the power of working together, the power of understanding that we can complement each other as individuals, as organizations. But what is the key to have all of the potential of the power of the networks? To have a clear idea, to have a clear idea of why we can be together. And I see supporting freedom around the world. Well, that is a perfect place to start to build that common idea. We all believe that human beings, it doesn't matter where they are born, it doesn't matter if they are born poor or middle class or rich, black, white, brown, yellow, Catholic, Christians, Muslims, it doesn't matter what their condition is. There are basic rights that make them human, that make them free. And those basic rights have no borders. And if they don't have any borders, we need to be as engaged to fight for freedom in your own home country than in any other country in the world. And that's what brings us together. That's what brings us together. That common and simple idea that created the foundation of this country, that all men, and I should say all women, are created equal. If it's all women and all men, it's all of them, not some of them. It's all of them. And that it's a challenge. It's a challenge for every nation, and it's a challenge for us that believe that these rights don't have any borders. So I would like to say thank you. Thank you to Berta. Thank you to Lilian. Thank you to your team. Thank you to all of the families. Thank you to all of the people that have gone through the program. Thank you to the people that have believed in this simple but powerful and transformational idea. And I would like to say that we can never be satisfied. And I know that this team is not satisfied. And I just want to tell you some of the things that the political prisoner support team is doing. They want to bring AI into the work that they are doing. They are bringing Bitcoin into the work that they are doing. They are figuring out ways to scale not just the handbook, but to make sure that hundreds of thousands of people can read the manual so they can be translated. We had a problem the other day. There were some Tibetans that wanted the manual, but there's no Tibetan translation available in Google. So they figure out a way to translate it to Tibetan language and to make sure that people in Tibet, as it should be for anybody in any country in the world, can have access to this. So another idea, the use of technology to scale the capacities that we have. But let's never, ever lose sight of the simplicity of the mission that binds us together. Freedom, one word, that means a lot. It means the possibility to do many things, to speak out, to walk around, to gather with whomever you want to gather, to believe or not to believe. Freedom, that word, that mission is what binds us together. And thank you to the National Endowment for Democracy and to all of you for hosting us. It's an honor. Thank you very much.